Hi everyone, welcome back to Words of Wokism. Random. I'm just, picking them up as I go along. This one it's kind of multiple words in a phrase. Culturally relevant teaching, culturally responsive teaching, which is a function of culturally relevant or culturally responsive pedagogy, another term you might hear. Notice culturally relevant teaching. CRT. Doesn't matter if it's responsive or relevant, same thing. In terms of the CRT part, it's the kinder, gentler CRT. It's the euphemized CRT. It's the they won't notice it's the same letters CRT. They think we're so stupid, but that's what it is. It's CRT. It's still CRT, and it doesn't matter whether it's relevant, meaning we, the inner circle of the cult of woke, have decided what you ought to know about your perceived culture. And by perceived, I mean the one we perceive that you have by virtue of immutable characteristics that are skin deep, like the shade of your skin, or perhaps the language that you came to school speaking that was other than English, or we heard your parents speaking, or your last name, or something like that, where we're going to make some assumptions about what is or ought to be relevant in our opinion about you by virtue of what we perceive to be the superficial characteristics of a culture that is other than. Other than what, Deb? Other than fully assimilated American, already speaking fluent English, who is white or likely Christian or Jewish or agnostic or something like that. In other words, anything that's like a little different about your culture. And that could include the gender identity or sexuality of your parents, small child, whatever it is. If it's other than the societal norm, or not even norm, just the majority. If it's other than majority, if it's a minority, especially really small one, then we've decided you need to know these things about it. And if you are a member of the majority, then the cultural relevance is the stuff we think you need to know about your majority culture. That would be the relevant part, is what we think is relevant for you to know about the perception we have of your culture, or your perceived culture. And responsive would be sort of the inversion of that. So if you come to school and we survey you or ask you questions or poke and prod into your privacy, or even ask your parents or whatever, and we pull out information from you, your parents are divorced, you come from a single family household, or you're poor, or you didn't get a lot of sleep last night, or you don't get to eat breakfast every day, or well, who knows? Then we want to respond to these things in ways that we are going to connect with that perception of culture as we define it. We Marxists, right? We Freireans. And we're going to respond to that in such a way that we generate themes, the generative theme of Freirean culture. Go watch my video about that, or read my article in Substack. Excuse my coughing. And we're going to respond to that. Sorry, have to. This has happened to me a lot lately. And we're going to tell you what you need to know about that, or we're just going to do things around you that cause you to ask more and more questions, and like kind of marinate in the most, relevant parts of that to our agenda. So, for example, if we decide that because you come from a lower socioeconomic level home, and it's a single parent home, and you're brown or black, or you're, and you also speak Spanish, and maybe your single parent home, your mom is, a lesbian and out and whatever, and like we know this. Okay, so what we're gonna do to be responsive to these little factoids we now have about you from either your registration papers or things we've heard, because we're ear to the ground, trying to find any generative information. Or again, we're surveying you to death, even the little child, who apparently is a great resource on their own culture at the age of 6. And we're going to make decisions about that so that we pull it into the curriculum. And we talk a lot about kids living in poverty. We talk a lot about kids who have something other than a nuclear family. We're going to talk a lot about kids who grow up, who have Hispanic background. And we're going to like talk about that a lot. And we're not necessarily even always going to celebrate it, you know, which in and of itself would be kind of odd, you know, like we're going to celebrate who you already are. I mean, okay, it's not that in and of itself isn't horrible, except I doubt they're celebrating or being responsive to the vanilla white kid with a nuclear family, right? You know, and if the poor little vanilla white kid from the nuclear family has a cross or a little Star of David, then they might have to be responsive and make sure that child knows about their oppressive culture that they come from. We have to respond to that, right? That's also it. So we're going to respond to that, and then we're going to give you relevant pedagogy for you to grapple with, for you to struggle through and deal with, and you're going to have the requisite number of struggle sessions that you would need to have to, you know, learn what you need to learn. That's the Freirean model. So culturally relevant or culturally responsive education is going to, it's a lot more projection than it is anything else. They're projecting onto these little kids a bunch of cultural stereotypes, and they're pulling, you know, really superficial facts from surveys and or observation, and then they're using that to generate themes that will give them the permission to teach the other, you know, the critical theories. The critical race theory about power and privilege based on race, critical gender theory, power and privilege based on gender, critical climate theory based on wealth and climate justice and all this kind of stuff. So regardless of what it is they want to teach, they already know what they want to teach. They know what they want to teach. This is not, you know, and it's those themes, those critical theories. We want to make sure that we get these kids to be critically conscious of oppression and their role in the hierarchy, in the systems of oppression, whether they're oppressor or victim, okay? So what they're going to use as fodder for that, as justification for that, is the projected culture they're going to put onto the kid or pull out of the kid. And then they're going to say, well, it came from the kid. It was culturally relevant. The reason we talk all the time about slavery is there are, you know, 80% of the class is black. So we're going to spend lots and lots and lots and lots more time than usual on slavery and oppression and bondage and poverty and all of these things, because look, we're being culturally responsive and culturally relevant. We're going to teach math using rap. We're going to do this, you know, because that's culturally relevant. Well, first of all, like I said, is projection. How do they know? Just by looking at a kid, or even by their socioeconomic status or the neighborhood where they live, you couldn't possibly know, even if you were next door neighbors with somebody, you can't know what's culturally relevant to that kid's culture, to their individual culture. I was listening to a guy the other day on YouTube talking about how in every relationship, friendship, romantic relationship, doesn't matter, just every relationship is a culture clash. Because no two people, even in the same household, siblings, for example, grow up with exactly the same culture around them. Now, obviously, I'm getting to the real micro level, but I want to make a point that there is really no way in a standardized, you know, like taxpayer funded, equal under the law kind of a way to educate people in a way that's culturally relevant to each individual person. You couldn't possibly know that information. The child doesn't even know. They're becoming that person before your very eyes. They're learning their household culture before your very eyes. So the only thing you can do as an educator is just teach them the things that have nothing to do with their culture, because you can't possibly know. Or you can teach them very superficial, high-level stuff. That's literally all you can do. That's it. Anything else, you're projecting on the kid. You're putting into the kid. You're actually colonizing the kid's brain and preventing them from learning their own culture, from their own household and their own family, whatever that might be. And what is culture? After all, it's traditions, religion, art, music, food, language. That's culture. Now, I've talked a lot on my channel about how public school in America was conceived originally for the purpose of assimilating the children into one worldview. that aligned real nice and neat with the state and business, okay? As it was then. And we're hearing it again now, 21st century skills, whatever. So they're not interested in you preserving your unique individual culture of your home. They're not. They'll say that. But think about it logically. Can they even do that? Is it even possible? Let's say they're well-intentioned. They're not, but let's say they are. Okay, let's give them that. Do you think that's doable? Really? Do you think that if you like, we're going to have culture day and we're going to have some foods and like, oh, we're going to read a book about other kids who are Hispanic or whatever. Do you think that's really, I mean, that's nice. I'm not saying like that's bad, but that's not really doing your job. That's not passing on your culture. First of all, it's not going to be yours. It's going to be whoever wrote the books. Okay. It might echo yours. It might resonate, but it's not literally telling your little child what's relevant about your culture. In fact, kids who go to, let's say, Jewish day school or Catholic school or whatever are still only getting like kind of a rough guesstimate or subset of their culture of origin that their parents are trying to pass on. The parents still know I've got to do the lion's share of the work, and teachers still know I'm not here to supplant that. I'm here to enhance that. That's why parents choose parochial schools or cultural schools, okay? So public school isn't for that. It's not its mandate. It's not its job. It's actually rather inappropriate because at the end of the day, it's still the government. So really, do we want the government telling each and every child what is relevant to their culture? That seems beyond presumptuous. It's rude. If you think about it, they're supplanting you. And I've said they're supplanting you with SEL. They're supplanting you with all the gender theory and sex ed. They're triangulating it crazy. But it's ironic to me and hypocritical that they'll talk about colonizers colonizing and, you know, this whole spirit murder of black children by having a white teacher. What's more spirit murder? A white teacher who says, I'm just going to teach you to read and do math and learn and science, and I'm going to not presume to know anything about you, your culture, your home life, or anything like that, and I'm not going to put my values or beliefs onto you other than I want you to do well at reading and math and science, and that's of value to me, that you be successful at these things so you could go out in the world and prosper in whatever way that you want to. Or the also black teacher, but who comes from like a completely different religious perspective than you, a set of moral values than you, decides that your child doesn't need to read or do math quite as much as they need to be extremely, extremely angry about being black in America. And maybe that's not something that you agree with. Like, which one of these is doing more spirit murder? Which person would you rather have as your child's teacher? Flip it around. Okay, you're a white parent, even a white left-leaning parent, and you've got another, you've got a black teacher who is just doing what I just described the white teacher were doing, just like, hi, I'm your teacher, I'm teaching you subjects, etc. I'm not infusing it with my political views, whatever. You don't need to know that her favorite person in the world is Candace Owens or somebody else, okay? Whatever. She's very conservative, goes to church every single Sunday, sings in the gospel choir. You're a complete atheist, you're very pro-LGBT, whatever, but the black teacher is coming and saying, hi, I'm here to teach your child, and this is what we're going to learn, and so on and so forth and so on, and they don't infuse any kind of politics into it, they just teach your kid. Or the black teacher, white teacher, irrelevant teacher, any teacher that comes in and says to your kid, so I just want to check in with you and make sure you're aware that you might be in the wrong body. Like, what are your pronouns? You sure you're really a girl? Because, I don't know, you look kind of mad. I saw you playing sports with the boys outside. Let's read a book about gender pronouns and gender identity because, queer is awesome. And would you like to come to Rainbow Club after school? Because, and then here's my phone number. You can text me anytime you have any issues. Like, don't worry, I won't tell your mom. Which of those teachers would you rather have? And again, it doesn't matter if it's black or white. I just kind of use that example because you might think, oh, yay, my child is a black teacher, especially if you're left-leaning and you want to be all like into BLM and everything. But would you be horrified to find out that the black teacher in question was conservative? Or if they kept it to themselves and it was not, they weren't really involving your kid in that, would you not care? Right? Okay? But if they suddenly were telling your kid all about the queer lifestyle, would it really matter what skin color they had? This is what I'm saying. They're colonizing or spirit murder, which I should have done a separate video on that. What is spirit murder, Deb? You brought another term in. We're doing words wokism. What the hell? Okay, I'll do another one on that. But it's the idea that being taught a certain way is murdering your spirit because it's not culturally responsive or culturally relevant. And I think the culture of a school should be its own culture, and it shouldn't be even attempting to replicate your culture at home or supplant it. If it tries to supplant it, it's operating in the long xenophobic tradition of the colonizers of the late 18th and 19th, or sorry, the late 19th and early 20th century in public education, who said, you shall all think like little wasps and be perfect little automaton citizens who do as we say and function in the factory. Okay? That is the colonizing that you ought to not want. Okay? And, you know, it's ridiculous. The culture of the school shouldn't do that. It shouldn't try to do that. It should just be about academic excellence and respect for autonomy. You may be in a class of 20, but you're an individual. And we're just going to try to make sure you're doing as well as you can do academically. And if there's stuff going on psychologically that's preventing that, we're going to refer that out to the experts at that. We're not going to decide it's because you feel culturally out of it or blah, 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 blah. We're going to project all of our own fears and insecurities onto you. We're not going to do that because that's not the culture of school. School is school, home is home. The real culturally relevant education is the one provided by parents. And it is why I'm an advocate for homeschooling, or at least parent-directed learning. Pick your own teachers who will respect this and respect the fact that the only way to be culturally responsive to your child is to not get involved in trying to figure out what culture you are or want your child to internalize and grow up with as part of their identity. That's for you to decide, not for the school teacher. So I hope this helps you understand a little better what culturally relevant, culturally responsive, what it is. It's just another one of these terms. It's like, that sounds good until you dig into it a little bit. And then you go, wait a minute. That sounds exactly like the thing they said was really, really bad that the alleged white supremacist society would do to people when they would assimilate them. And yeah, it's just a different kind of assimilation. They want to assimilate you into Marxist culture, which is basically bland. Everybody's the same. Everybody's equal. Equity, equal outcomes. You don't get to have a separate culture. We just tricked you. For real. That is exactly what it means. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching. Have a great evening.